Why do you think that your generation has such an affinity for this gender identity ideology?
There are a lot of different reasons. Like, there have been some pretty massive shifts in parenting that kind of lean more towards like helicopter parenting. Whereas before, like, there was more of this norm of just sending your kids out to play, like, and come home when the streetlights come on. Like, my generation didn't experience that. In the old world, right? Like,
Right.
before my time, maybe in your time, kids actually had to come up with their own activities. They had to entertain themselves. They met up with other kids. They would do risky stuff. They would fall off a tree and they would learn how to tolerate physical pain. They'd learn how to tolerate distress. Like, there was imaginative play in the younger years that happened. But when this is not happening, when you don't do it when you're like 2, 3, 4, 5, you're missing out on all of those important skills of figuring out like how to interact with other people and how to figure out like who are you versus like these characters whose costumes you're putting on. So if kids aren't doing that and they're not playing these risky games where they could get hurt, yes, you may be saving them from a broken arm or a skinned knee, but what you are robbing from them fundamentally is the ability to like start to develop independence and really important skills. Naturally, a kid who has no social skills or very few social skills, like, they're going to be pretty confused. They become totally secluded in these online forums. Kids really are not meant to be raised by a computer. This is just a perfect storm because of this massive shifts in parenting, shifts in technology, like our attitudes about child rearing going from kind of parent led to being totally child centered. So then the trans framework comes in, right? The claims of gender ideology, the claims that if you feel uncomfortable in your body, if you feel that your body is wrong, which basically every kid around puberty will feel, it means that it is therefore literally correct that your body is, in some metaphysical sense, wrong. And then what's the inroad to the trans framework, right? Discomfort around puberty, gender nonconformity. If you say you're trans, you are trans. So it's really easy to get in. What ends up happening is that this kid, they're miserable. They don't have life skills. It's hard for them to relate to other kids their own age. They feel like they're odd. And oftentimes they are odd. A lot of them have like neurodivergent traits. And if they're so high functional, they'll never get diagnosed with them. And this
Right.
is a generation that needs diagnosis to understand itself. It becomes this whole mess where this framework basically makes sense of their developmental misery. There's a reason why a lot of parents of Gen Z kids are affirming. And it's because they trust the experts. They've been told to trust the experts. And they think, okay, yeah, sure, some of this is experimental, but if it's happening in a sterile like environment of a gender clinic, then it's safe. And that's also the reason why Gen Z thinks that like, taking these types of mind altering substances is going to be safe. They want a rebellion that they perceive to be safe.